Hi everyone, welcome back to the Dr. Sia channel. In the video here today, we're going to be talking about what the 4 different attachments actually are. It's quite an in-depth, if you will, thing to be thinking about what the 4 attachments are. So we're not going to be going too deep into each and every one, but if you're not familiar with the attachment theory and the 4 different attachments whatsoever, this might be a good place to start. So let's get started. All right, so a long time ago, obviously, Freud came up with an idea that's called the psychosexual theory that said that children's, what happens for children in their childhood based on these sort of sexual developmental phases has a long-standing or an impact, if you will, on the rest of their life. So, of course, whether you believe that it has something to do with psychosexual stages or not, this had a huge impact on the field of psychology and a huge impact on the field of thinking, human thinking whatsoever, about children, about the impact of childhood on our adult lives, and so on and so forth. So, subsequent to that, a lot of people developed other theories. So Erikson, for example, developed his theory about psychosocial development, Piaget about the cognitive sort of developments, and so on and forth, so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of people, like myself, view the accumulation of all of that knowledge having been, I suppose, in a way, put together in this really magnificent theory called attachment theory that was developed by Bowlby. Now, basically, what they found, Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth is another person who's really worth mentioning here, because what they put together in this sense is that they realized that when children in an experiment would separate from their mothers, so when they would basically have all these cameras watching how a child would behave when their mother would leave and come back. All right, so just that in itself is enough to know about the experiment. I don't want to bore make anyone bored about what happens for the child in the experiment. So the mother would leave from the room, leave the child there with a stranger. All right, and how the child then acted is something that was used as the science, if you will, underlying all of these attachment theory, all of the attachment theory. So if we look at what happened there, for secure children, for children who were secure, what they found, or how they knew that these children were secure, is that when the mom would leave the room and leave the child with a stranger, the child would cry. It would be upset, right? It wasn't comfortable with being with a complete stranger, and it would cry, waiting for its mother to come back. When the mom came back, the child would be soothed and quickly connecting back to the mom again, and able to be regulated by the mother. I mean, when regulated means that the mother was able to help the child get their emotions to a level where it was actually functional, and the child was able to help themselves too. This is something that became called the secure child, or the securely attached child. Now, moving on to the avoidant child. These children, when their mother left the room, the child seemed relatively unbothered by that situation. What it simply would do was try to just ignore the stranger as much as it could. So it would sort of just turn away from the stranger and keep playing. So why they call this avoidant is because in this experiment, obviously, the person in the room, that stranger, is a threat. A child is made to not be really comfortable with a stranger. But all this child needed to do to regulate themselves was to turn away from the stranger, pretend. Remember, turning away doesn't make the stranger actually go away. It's just pretending like the stranger has gone away. Would be to turn away from the stranger and just pretend like the stranger isn't there, right? And then when the mother would come back, the child would continue to disengage with the mother. So it's like the child that disengaged, in a way, become avoidant, was avoiding the stranger and was now also avoiding the mother. Because the mom hurt me, so I avoid mom. The stranger could hurt me, so I avoid the stranger. Right? So this then they termed the avoidant child. Then there's the ambivalent child. The ambivalent child the mother would go away and the ambivalent child would cry. There's a stranger here, there's a stranger. And they would cry and cry and cry. So far it looked like the secure child. But here is the difference. When the mom would come back, there'd be no soothing. The child would thrash, yell, scream, cry, punch. It was basically not able to be soothed by their mother. So this is the ambivalent child, always crying out for help, always believing that they need help, and never ever really being able to be soothed by their own mother. Then there is the disorganized child. When the disorganized child's mother left the room, the disorganized child found, the observers, the people who were doing the experiment, they found that the disorganized child's behavior was erratic, that it just didn't really make sense. The child would do things like walk backwards towards the stranger, or just try to do things that don't make sense. Like I was watching one of these experiments, and the child was just started, for example, they started hitting themselves. They weren't even crying, they were sad, but they just started frantically hitting themselves. So here you can see that with the disorganized child, it suggested that there's something really, really, really wrong going on. So it was so sporadic, it was so, nonsensical, that they just called it disorganized. It seemed like this child had not learned to systematically avoid, nor to systematically complain at the inefficiencies of their mother, but rather nothing really worked for this child. Nothing made sense. So they just engaged in erratic behaviors until they would eventually find something. But what we find then in adulthood is that children who are secure, children who are avoidant, children who have been ambivalent, and children who have been disorganized pretty much stay that way in adulthood if certain factors are not met. So people who are secure then find that with their partners, of course they miss their partners when their partners are away, but when they come back, they're also able to be soothed by their partners. The partner can come back and say, sorry that I was away for so long, and they can be soothed and they can repair again. They can repair. So a big function of securely attached people is not that they don't break like other people. They do, but they repair again. They have relationship problems like everyone else, but they're also able to repair those relationship hurts. With avoidant people, avoidant children, when they become avoidant adults, the same pattern continues there. In their relationships, they'll be hiding emotions, they'll be hiding their thoughts, they'll be hiding what goes on for them. They'll have ideas around, when the person hurts me, the best thing I can do is to look away from it, to not talk about it. They don't process it. When they're hurt, they don't repair hurts together. So for an avoidant person, what you'll find is that when they get hurt in relationships, they'll take themselves into the room, and when they can fix themselves up, they'll come back out. Of course, this puts an immense strain on the relationship, because there's also other things that goes on, like sulking, like detachment from each other, like this huge distance. So everything could be good, and as soon as there's a little bit of a conflict, then there's this huge distance between the partners. Then there's the ambivalent people who in their adulthood stay ambivalent in their relationships. They'll find that as soon as there's a little micro hurt, as soon as something goes a little bit wrong, there's this huge blow up, that this absolutely big blow up that the partner can now not really fix, and the person is really hurt, and no one understands them, and no one can help them. But when things are good, the ambivalent person is so intent on pleasing their partner, so intent on not being hurt again, that it in fact puts a really big strain on their relationship, because that person, the ambivalent person, tends to not want anything, not have any really personality of their own. They do have a personality, but it's almost like the relationship gets in the way of that personality, as opposed to help the personality that they have thrive. So the ambivalent person will be really pleasing and really caring and really nurturing on one hand, but also be extremely dependent on the other. Then finally, there's the disorganized person. And the person with the disorganized attachment style will just be extremely chaotic, even in their adult relationships. So here, their partner might do something, say something that's really nice, and that might trigger the person who's disorganized. So the person might come home and say, wow, you look really beautiful today. And the disorganized person might take that as an insult. How do you dare, thinking of me as only my flesh, that this is only my body, or that I'm only this or that. Oh, wow, the place looks really nice today. Oh, you just want me for my money. You don't want me for anything else. So this disorganized person tends to, when abuse comes towards them, welcome it. And when abuse walks away from them, almost chase it. They are quite sensitive to closeness and nurturing and care because of obviously the trauma that they have experienced. These people tend to have been so severely abused and so repeatedly and severely abused in their relationships that any loving relationship in their mind must be one that will turn sour sooner or later. And even if the partner does nothing to make that happen, their minds will make that happen for them. So here is just a little brief snapshot of what happens, according to attachment theory, for people when they have different attachment styles if nothing is done about the attachment style that they acquired as children and how that progresses into adulthood. Now, I say if nothing is done because, of course, there's a lot of things that you can do about this. Now, if you're watching this video and you're resonating with any avoidant, ambivalent, or disorganized attachment style, there's, of course, a lot of things that you can do about that. For example, ISTDP therapy is something you can do about that. It's an extremely good therapy, and it's proven to help people change the way that they interact with other people, the ways that they interact with themselves, and it's proven to change people's attachment styles. So yeah, there's so much that you can do about that, including take yourself off to ISTDP therapy. Now, if you want to know more about that therapy, check out my other videos that I have here on the channel, and not in a while, I'm going to make another video on more on what is ISTDP therapy. So I have one video on what is ISTDP therapy out there already. I'm going to make a couple of more videos to go a little bit more in depth to respond to the people like yourselves who watch this channel and watch these videos, and they've asked for a series of different videos, and I've written down on the list that I have down here on the floor your comments, and I'm going to be trying to make videos about those comments as we go along now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, press that bell button. Let me know what else you would like to know. Like I said, I do make videos about the comments that you make. So yeah, let me know. You want me to talk about it? Just let me know, and sooner or later, I will talk about it. Thank you so much.